Max is a Disney employee who jumped ship when when he made this his career. Oh, nice. That's cool. That's cool. All right, this one is, oh god, what is this? Pumpkin pie. Yeah, pumpkin pie from 1796. A history of pumpkins. I don't know about y'all, but I love me some pumpkin pie, so I definitely want to see what's going on with this.
To colonists living in America in the 17th century, few things were more important to their survival than pumpkins.
Really?
As one poem from the 1630s put it, instead of pottage and puddings and custards and pies, our pumpkins and parsnips are common supplies. We have pumpkins at morning and pumpkins at noon. If it was not for pumpkin, we should be undone. And as I wish not to be undone, I'm making one of America's first recipes for pumpkin pie from 1796.
Okay.
So thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring this video as we make America's first pumpkin pie. This time on Tasting History.
I'm very excited to see what the origin of this is, because I love me some pumpkin pie, y'all, let me tell you.
Today's recipe comes from American Cookery by Amelia Simmons, which was published in Hartford, Connecticut in 1796. It's often considered the first cookbook by an American published in the relatively new United States of America, and it has some of the earliest recipes for pumpkin pie, especially that custardy pumpkin pie that we know and love today. But her recipes are still rather different than the modern pumpkin pie. She actually has two recipes, but the one I'm making today simply calls for 1 quart of milk, 1 pint pumpkin, 4 eggs, molasses, allspice, and ginger in a crust, bake 1 hour. So a few differences between this and the modern pumpkin pie. First of all,
that's it. That is so few ingredients compared to what I use. Shit. Okay, sure, fine, whatever. Interesting. Also, what the hell is up with the spelling of the word pumpkin? Why the O and not the U? That's my question. That's my question. One of my nephews is allergic to pumpkin and other hard squashes. Ooh, sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that, Fetch. I'm getting flashbacks to carrot pie. Oh, yeah. Same. Same.
She calls it pumpkin. And you'll find that early on, there are a lot of ways to spell the word pumpkin, none of which is actually pumpkin. The French spelled it pompon, which came from medieval French, and then the English turned it into pompion or pumpion. And both of those words could really refer to all manner of squash or even melons sometimes. It wasn't until later that they added the K to make pumpkin, kin being a suffix that could be used to denote a similarity between things. Another theory is that the K came from the Massachusetts language, as their word for this food was popukun. Either way, the spelling pumpkin
that makes sense.
is really the last one to come around, and I'm curious if in a couple hundred years there'll be even a different way to spell it. The second major difference between this and a modern pie is that she sweetens it not with sugar, but with molasses.
I was about to say, the fact that she uses molasses and not sugar. Huh. What kind of flavor profile is that going to result in? Because that, that's interesting.
It'll be far less sweet than we're used to. But I've decided to make it anyway because this is tasting history, and having something that tastes a little bit different is part of the fun. Another thing that I find fun is watching British TV shows, even though
molasses was the sweetener of the poor. That's entirely fair, son.
From today's sponsor, NordVPN.
Whoop, hold on. Like, I get it. Get that bag, buddy, but no.
YouTube. And for this historical cooking content, what you'll need is 1 quart or 1 liter of whole milk, 4 eggs, a half cup or 190 grams of molasses, 1.5 teaspoons of allspice, and 2 teaspoons of ginger, and 2 cups or 450 grams of pumpkin. I'm using a sugar pumpkin because it is, as the name would suggest, a little bit sweeter than others, but really any squash is going to work. To make life easier, you can also use canned pumpkin, and this is typically Dickinson pumpkin. But if you are going to use a whole pumpkin, then you have a few options on how to cook it. She says in one of the recipes that it can be stewed and strained. And that makes me think she never actually tried it, because if you stew and strain it, 1, it becomes very watery, and 2, it loses all of its flavor, and pumpkin doesn't have a very strong flavor as it is. I was about to say that's a very subtle flavor. I would do as most recipes from this time suggest.
Yeah, there you go.
So cut it in half and scoop out all of the insides. Then set it on a lined baking
pumpkin
sheet
seeds,
and bake
baby.
it at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, 175 Celsius for 1 hour. And as soon as it's done, take it out and remove the skin while it's still hot. It should come off very easily in strips.
Oh, wow.
Then let it cool just a bit before mashing it up as smooth as you can. And if you want to, you can pass it through a strainer to get even a nicer, smoother puree.
Nice.
Into the pumpkin, you're going to add the eggs, which should be well beaten. Then the molasses, which should be the sweetest molasses that you can find. There are multiple kinds. You don't want sulfured or blackstrap molasses.
Oh yeah, no. Blackstrap molasses is super bitter.
Start to whisk the ingredients together, and then add in the allspice and ginger and the rest of the milk and whisk until everything is well combined.
Interesting.
This is so much more liquidy than a modern filling.
Yeah, I was about to say that's super liquidy compared to more modern recipes. Holy cow. Thoughts on roasted pumpkin seeds? I like them. I like them because you can augment their flavor very like with. Let me try this again without stumbling over my words. They're basically a blank canvas. You can add or subtract flavor to roasted pumpkin seeds quite a bit. I've actually done like cinnamon sugar pumpkin seeds. Those are really good. I've done Parmesan crusted roasted pumpkin seeds. Those are also really good. I like those. Those are probably my favorites. Also, I just realized the little pumpkin Pikachu back here. Oh, that's adorable. Oh, that's so cute. Oh, that's so cute. I want one. Oh my god, that's so adorable. Ah.
Be quite lighter as well. Now, she says to put it into a crust, and you can just use your favorite pie crust. That's fine. But in the first recipe for the pumpkin pie, she says to use either recipe 3 or 7, which she has several paste recipes in there.
Ah, interesting.
Number 3 because it sounds wonderfully rich. It says to any quantity of flour, rub in 3/4 of its weight of butter. 12 eggs to a peck, rub in 1/3 or
that's
half,
a lot of eggs.
Roll in the rest. To make this crust, what you'll need is 1 pound or 450 grams of flour, 3/4 of a pound of butter, and 2 eggs. Rub the butter into the flour until you get a sort of breadcrumb consistency, and then add in the egg. Mix in the egg until you have something like a pie dough.
Okay, I was about to say, how big is this pie? Yeah, exactly. I was like, wait a minute, hold on. How many pies are we making here? I was very concerned. I'm like, why are there 12 eggs in this recipe? Wait. 12 eggies, rather, exactly. Holy Jesus. I have to ask, since no one has ever actually answered this question for me, do you eat the shell of the roasted pumpkin seeds or do you spit them out? They're edible. R2, they're entirely edible. They are entirely edible. I don't bother picking the shells apart. I just eat the whole damn thing. Right, it depends on how big a peck is. That's also true. What are these measuring units? Jesus Christ.
Pie pan. And you do want the deepest pan that you can find because it is a lot of filling, or you can make 2 regular sized pies as well. Either one will work. Whichever you choose, give the crust a crimp, and then you'll need to blind bake it if you want any chance of this pastry actually getting cooked. So line the crust with some foil and add in some pie weights, and then bake this for 15 minutes at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Take it out, remove the weights, and return it to the oven and bake.
What was that BDL House recipe that had fluid drams? Yeah, that one. That one. What the fuck is that? Remember the edges, Dylan. The edges! This also just reminds me, this video also just reminds me, I need to get my own set of pie weights. Because if I'm gonna bake a pie to bring for Thanksgiving, I don't have pie weights on me. I really need to get my own set of pie weights. Fork it. I'm not that desperate. Blind bake the shell. Dylan runs into the oven. Oh yeah, no, I remember that. Oh, that was good. Oh, that's incredible. A peck is an imperial and United States customary unit of dry volume equivalent to 2 dry gallons or 8 dry quarts or 16 dry pints. An imperial peck is equivalent to 9.09 liters and a U.S. customary peck is equivalent to 8.81 liters. Yeah, no, that's a lot. Yeah, I can see why you would need a dozen eggs for that. That's a lot. Holy Jesus.
For another 15 or 20 minutes, or until all of the crust is pretty much baked. You can also use a pie shield, which is this thing that goes around the crust. If the crust starts to brown too much, it has saved many a crust for me.
Interesting.
Let the crust cool
Okay, yeah.
ladling
Pie
in
shield.
the filling. I filled it about 3/4 of the way full, then put it in the oven and ladled the rest afterward, because moving this with all the liquid, you're going to make a huge mess.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's a lot.
Get it mostly full, put it in the oven, and then ladle in that final amount. Once it's in the oven, you're going to bake it at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 75 to 80 minutes, or until there's just a slight wobble in the middle.
Wow.
And while it bakes, do hit the like button as I tell you how this iconic
That's a
pumpkin pie
lot.
became a staple of American cookery.
Okay.
America's love affair with pumpkins goes back long before America was even a thing.
Okay.
Different squashes were staples of the cuisine of numerous indigenous people from North, Central, and South America.
Yeah, I was about to say.
When Europeans did come to the New World, pumpkins were among the first foods they encountered. The country aboundeth naturally with store of good roots of great variety and good to eat. Here are also store of pumpions, cowcumbers, and other things of that nature which I know not.
Cowcumber? Okay.
In 1634, a Dutch surgeon and his compatriots were on the verge of starvation in upstate New York.
A pie shield implies the existence of a pie sword. You're right, son.
By indigenous people of the area that saved them. December 30th. A woman came to meet us, bringing us baked pumpkins to eat.
That sounds tasty.
We ate heartily of pumpkins, beans, and venison, so that we were not hungry, but were treated as well as is possible.
I love venison, chat.
Dependence on pumpkins runs through many stories.
I love venison.
From this
Venison's so good.
period of American
That's why it falls pumpkin flavored everything. Pretty much, yeah.
Europeans often
Yeah, you're right.
woefully ignorant of how to grow their European crops in this new land. For example, in 1654, Edward Johnson wrote a history of the first English settlers of Massachusetts. In it, he says that when the English arrived in what they would call conquered Massachusetts in 1635, the want of English grain, wheat, barley, and rye proved a sore affliction to some stomachs who could not live upon Indian bread and water. Instead of apples and pears, they had pumpkins and squashes of divers kinds. That is, many new varieties of pumpkin and squash.
I'm going to be saying the word
Exactly
interesting a
what
lot,
they're
chat. I'm
talking
sorry.
about is unclear because, as I said, at this time, many people used the term pumpion or pumpkin to mean all sorts of different squashes and even melons. And so you get terrible definitions, like this one from 1629,
All right, how bad is
which
this?
says that a pumpkin is a fruit which is very great, sometimes of the bigness of a man's body, and oftentimes less. In some ribbed or bunched, in other planed, and either long.
That is so inaccurate and annoys me. That is so vague. It annoys me. Oh, I hate this.
Or round, either green or yellow or gray, as nature listeth to show herself. My favorite thing about this is that the author, John Parkinson, realizes about halfway through that his description is so vague as to make it pretty much useless as a definition. For it is but waste time to recite all the forms and colors may be observed in them. What most descriptions of the time don't include is the fact that pumpkins are often orange. Rather, the great round pumpkin is oftentimes of a greener color with a harder bark. Or the common pumpkin is either long, flat, round, or pyramidal, having a hard rind of a green or dark green color spotted with white. First off, I want to see what a pyramidal pumpkin looks like.
That's what I want to see. What does a pyramidal pumpkin look like?
Pyramid-shaped pumpkin. What is he talking about? Also, even though the fact that the outside of these pumpkins tended to be white or green, their pulp is as yellow as
oh my God, R2.
which makes me think that any of them could work in a pie like the one that is in my oven right now. And these pumpkins, regardless of their color, were perfect for the early settlers because they were numerous and they grew in great quantities. When they were planted in Virginia in 1615, pumpkins propagated in such abundance
I was about to say they were probably everywhere. Yeah.
From one seed. And they made the pumpkin into all sorts of dishes, including pottages, soups, puddings, or something that in 1671 was described as the ancient New England standing dish. They would take a pumpkin and stew it in water for an entire day, and then they would.
Have you seen the Betty Crocker episode? No, I haven't. I have to put that on cue now. Thank you, Bird.
It provokes urine extremely and is very
Bird, I explained it while you were away, but like it's been a while since we checked out Max again, and I want to check out Max again because there have been a lot of people, especially on YouTube, who have been recommending me, Chef, you need to go back and watch more Max Miller. I'm like, all right, I guess that's what we're doing.
The countryside so that instead of relying on fish and beans for their protein, they had beef and pork and mutton available, and for desserts they had apples, pears, and quince tarts instead of their former pumpkin pies. And around this period, when the European foods had finally become available in the New World,
sounds like they're talking about heritage pumpkins, the one who never turn orange but stay kind of watermelon cut. Ooh, interesting, son.
It didn't go away completely, but it became thought of as a food that you ate because you had to, because you didn't have access to something else or you couldn't afford something else.
Okay, that checks.
What they would often call the insipid.
I'm behind on his content, but I think he made real garum. That popped up in my recommendeds a couple of days ago. Yeah.
The ingredient does appear in a handful of cookbooks.
We're checking that one out too.
Closet by Hannah Woolley in 1670, which is the source that I used when I made my pumpkin pie a few years ago.
Interesting.
Really, it
looks
never
like a
became
pizza.
A staple of the English kitchen, or at least it wouldn't for quite some time. The southern colonies also turned up their nose at pumpkins as something that was less than ideal to eat. Really, it was only in New England that the pumpkin continued. How to Make Your Neighbors Hate You 101,
make garum.
It did have
if you haven't, you should watch Pecan Pie too.
Like
ooh, okay, yeah.
When Edward Johnson wrote,
I need to make a list. Yeah, we'll check those out. Well, I'll check that one out too, son.
With this fruit the Lord was pleased to feed his people to their good content. And instead of seeing those early settlers' reliance on pumpkins as something to be ashamed of, they began to see it as a bit of a badge of honor. It was harkening back to a simpler time when there were just a handful of colonists struggling to survive. The times wherein old Pompian was a saint, when man's fared hardly yet without complaint.
Now we have pumpkin parties and pumpkin festivals. True, yeah.
Dainty Indian maize was eat with clamshells out of wooden trays. These golden times, too fortunate to hold, were quickly
pumpkins in all shapes and sizes. It baffles me just how many varieties of pumpkin there are.
The 18th century,
like legitimately.
The word had actually become synonymous with the people, specifically those around Boston.
Really?
Pumpkin, a man or woman of Boston in America, from the number of pumpkins raised and eaten by the people of that country.
The next time, that's it. The next time I'm in Boston, I'm gonna walk up to a native Bostonian and just call him a pumpkin and see what happens. That's it. The next time I'm in Boston, I'm just gonna call a person a pumpkin. That's it. That's it. Oh god, my sound alerts. Ooh, forgot that. Thank you, Perso. Sorry about that. Yeah, I forgot to turn that back on. Do you want to get in a fist fight? Urban Dictionary 1706 edition. I've never heard that before, and I'm a citizen of Massachusetts. Unbelievable. Oh, I really need to increase the cooldown on that redeem. Thank you, Bird. I'm increasing the cooldown on that redeem. God dang it, y'all.
And the area around Boston became known to some as Pumpkinshire. And they were making all sorts of foods with these pumpkins, from pumpkin soups and stews to pumpkin pudding, pumpkin ale, and pumpkin porridge being as much in esteem with New England saints as jelly broth with Old England sinners. There was even a recipe from 1770, albeit from Virginia, to make pumpian chips. It called for thinly shaved pieces of pumpkin mixed with orange peel that were then boiled in a syrup of orange juice and sugar. It actually sounds really good, and maybe it'll be something that I need to try for Thanksgiving. It was also
that actually does sound really good. Wait,
pie became associated with the early Thanksgivings. In 1779, Congress declared that
actually does sound really good. Wait, hold on.
States to appoint Thursday, the 9th day of December.
Candied pumpkin chips, fuck yeah. No, seriously, that sounds amazing. Wait.
To Almighty God for his mercies. And to celebrate that Thanksgiving, the 18-year-old Juliana Smith.
No, wait, Max, go back. That actually just sounds like really good. Wait, that sounds like something I'd try. Hold on.
She says that the pumpkin pies, apple tarts,
don't worry, Bird. Don't worry. I'm not getting rid of the redeem. I'm just increasing the cooldown on the redeem. That's all.
We did not rise from the table until it was quite dark, and then, when the dishes had been cleared away, we all got round the fire as close as we could and cracked nuts and sang songs.
We have an urban legend around here that says if you consume a pumpkin before September 1st, you're going to be followed by a pack of crows for the rest of the year?
The fact that by the time dessert rolls around,
wow, that's the first I've ever heard of that. Holy cow.
Next day, or at least a couple hours, where I can lie down on the couch like an exhausted manatee.
Okay, same though.
3 years ago, when I first started
okay,
the channel,
same though.
I made the pumpkin pie from
oh my god.
And so many people ended up making that pie for Thanksgiving and having it on their holiday tables, and they shared pictures with me, and that has to be one of my favorite memories.
Exhausted manatee. No, that's also just me after Thanksgiving dinner.
Just kind of being able to be part of other people's
right, that's just me after Thanksgiving dinner, like fucking hell.
This year, if you make this pie or any of the pumpkin desserts or the pecan pie that doesn't have corn syrup in it, please share pictures either on Instagram or
hell yeah,
or
let's go.
Or Twitter and tag me, because I really enjoy that. So if you are going to make this pumpkin pie, I better show you how to finish baking it, because instead of taking it right out of the oven when it's fully baked, just turn off the oven and leave it in there, and you can wedge the door open with just a wooden spoon, because you want it to cool down very slowly. That's going to help it not crack. You know how sometimes pumpkin pies will crack across the top, ruin. This will help it not crack. And once it's completely cool, you can slice it up. And here we are, a slice of the first American pumpkin pie.
Same with meringues, true, Bird, yeah.
And actually, I was a little worried that because it was so liquidy that it was just gonna melt, but it didn't. It's definitely not as firm as a modern pumpkin pie, but it holds together.
Interesting. Wow.
That's really good. So you're really getting the spice. So much more than the sweetness, because there ain't no sugar in it. You're getting the sweetness only from the molasses. But it's killed all the bitterness of the molasses. That's really good. And if you don't like a sweet pumpkin pie, this is the way to go.
I may have to check this.
The texture is wonderful. It is firm.
I may have to try this. Hold on.
Smooth. It's more like a firm pudding. If you do want it sweeter, I would just add in maybe a half cup of brown sugar when you're mixing everything together, and that will sweeten it up. I don't think it's necessary.
Interesting. Oh my god.
So I'm pretty sure that is going to end up
sounds
becoming
really
a staple
tasty.
of my holiday season.
I should definitely try this. Like legitimately, I need to try this.
This is going to hang around till Christmas.
The pumpkin Pikachu is adorable. It really is.
The Bayou Tapestry Merry Christmas sweater that I did last year. I'm bringing it back because
that's amazing.
I didn't put it out until way too late, so a lot of people didn't get it. So I'll put a link in the description where you can get that if you want to show
that's actually really good. I dig that.
And the Norman invasion.
That's actually really good. Holy cow. This recipe sounds really solid, honestly. This sounds like something I would try. Like legitimately, this sounds like something I'd try.